Well, the live stream has started, so.
You have a live stream?
Well, the live stream has started, so.
Okay.
Maybe we're close. What's up?
Do one and one then?
We were suggesting we start with questions. We start with off-topic questions. Do you think the speaker will be enough?
And no,
Hour and a half late?
she's not going to be into that. I mean, I would love that, but I don't think she's going to go there.
We did this with the Mayor Adams's, and he ran away.
Where he came in, like, I don't want to hear.
Well, he said they're like on top of him, and Dan Ridley was like, Mayor Adams, and then he like ran, and I was running after him.
Yeah, and so, but I wanted you to, I did, I talked to Reverend Billy, and I think you guys should try this place. I think people will want to come. Yes, I think.
How old is he? 1.5. Very it's for you. Unlike very
So like, you know, he's all the way, like, come to me, like, fully, and then, you know, with your camera, and then, hey, unless you want to come on down and tell, I say, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I would just continue, like, you know, like, I'm bringing them pretty much all the way. That's why I thought this position would be good, and then.
He's evil. He's evil.
Wait, hold on. Let me do my daughter. Hold on.
Nobody wants to see your adult child.
Hey, listen.
Oh look, you see you talking about my son the other day. He's calling me now. Hello?
You know, when he was my nephew did an art class, and my mom talks about him like, she's like, you know, that's not his preferred form. Usually it's watercolors, but this was the end. She talks about him like he's at the witch. You know?
Listen, you don't want to see my child. We're looking at pictures of people's children. Showing off my child. People forget that I have a 35-year-old.
Step over to.
It's always so good.
Just letting you know.
It's a hot night. It's a hot night. I'm behaving. We're talking about children. It's a good one. For babies. I went to my friend's house. I had to he was his potty training. And he ran a house with no potty training, no camera on. He was on the potty training. And then shit felt good. He was so bad.
I got a video.
Camera on.
I was just saying by accident. They're listening. AI. They're listening. I'm telling you.
So much stuff going on.
And you lost that cigar over there.
I'm very old, so I'm
What's that?
Did you do anything about them starting on time? You gotta send the.
We're just talking about our kids.
I know, about our kids.
What did I tell you, Katie?
Hello.
I am so sorry to keep you all waiting. It's not usually this time. Oh, look. Hi, everybody. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Just weeks into the second Trump presidency, and we have already seen chaos created and unprecedented attacks being threatened upon our city and working families throughout the entire nation. The actions of the Trump administration have undermined the health and safety of Americans, violated the Constitution, and weakened national security. None of this does anything to help working families or make their lives more affordable. Each day, this new, not so new administration is rapidly upending the rule of law. Just as it pardoned those who rioted and assaulted law enforcement officers at the Capitol on January 6th, this week we saw the Justice Department issue an unprecedented letter that meddles in the federal criminal case against the mayor. This letter is a political weapon aimed at New York City and corruptly interferes in the legal process. It seems overtly intended to serve as a continued instrument of blackmail against our city's mayor, to serve as an arm of the Trump administration. It blatantly states what it expects of the mayor and the perpetual threat of his criminal case to force his compliance. This leaves the mayor of our city compromised, and we know the intentions of the Trump administration. This is bad for New York City, and this is bad for New Yorkers. New York City needs strong leadership that is committed to upholding the values of our city and protecting its diverse families and communities from the extremism of this presidential administration. This week alone, we've seen many attacks on our city and state from the Trump administration. Elon Musk, the wealthiest person in the world, whom no one voted for, by the way, but has been working to take away resources from everyday Americans, directed the administration to unjustly take federal funding that was already allocated away from our city. At the same time that the Justice Department is blackmailing our mayor, it is also threatening to attack our city by taking away funding for local law enforcement and crime victims. This situation is unsustainable, and the city's leaders, from Congress to the state and city governments, must determine a viable path forward for our city that is committed to protecting New Yorkers. From child care and public schools to health care and public safety, there is so much at stake, with an unhinged presidential administration comfortable with creating chaos. The people of our city count on their city, state, and federal governments, and it is more critical than ever for us to step up with strong local democracy in the face of increasing tyranny. Now let's move on to our stated agenda. Good segue. You all get me. I'm so glad. I love this room. First, we'll vote on the following land use items. 122-03 14th Avenue rezoning will facilitate a new 6-story mixed-use building with 103 residential units, at least 20% of which will be affordable under MIH, and ground floor retail space in the College Point Neighborhood Council of Council Members Palladino's district. 49-39 Van Dam Street demapping, an application to amend the city map to eliminate an unbuilt portion of Gale Avenue to facilitate the development of an outdoor dining area in Councilmember One's district. The council will be voting on a resolution to disapprove this application. 2185 Coyle Street will facilitate the development of a new 9-story mixed-use building with ground floor commercial space and over 400 housing units, 25% of which will be affordable under MIH Option 1 in the Sheepshead Bay neighborhood of Councilmember Narcisse's district. The council is modifying the application to ensure that the height permitted by the zoning more closely reflects the height of the proposed development and to establish MIH Option 1 and the deep affordability option as the available MIH options. 438 Concord Avenue rezoning will facilitate the development of a 10-story mixed-use building with manufacturing space, commercial space, community facility space, and 43 parking spots in Deputy Speaker Ayala's district. The council is modifying the application to require MIH Option 1 and the deep affordability option as the available MIH options. Landmark designation for the Jacob Day residence, a 3-story Greek Revival-style house in Councilmember Rivera's district. From 1857 to 1884, it was used as a home and place of business by Jacob Day, an advocate for the abolition of slavery and the successful owner of a catering company at a time when black men had limited business opportunities. 455 First Avenue rezoning, an application to facilitate the development of a new commercial life sciences building in the Kips Bay neighborhood in Councilmember Rivera's district. The project is on the current site of the New York City Public Health Laboratory, which will be moving to a new building at the Harlem Hospital Center. And Spark Kips Bay, an application to facilitate the redevelopment of the Hunter College Brookdale campus into a state-of-the-art life sciences campus in Councilmember Powers' district. The proposal will also facilitate the demolition and reconstruction of a pedestrian bridge over the FDR Drive, which will connect the Waterside Plaza with the campus open space and convert the bridge to be ADA compliant. Next, we will vote on the following finance items. A resolution to approve a budget modification pursuant to the New York City Charter. A transparency resolution approving the new designation and changes of certain organizations receiving funding in the expense budget. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 4 lots in Councilmember Sanchez's district. And a preconsidered resolution also sponsored by Councilmember Brannan establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 4 lots in Councilmembers Oswald Felice and Althea Stevens districts. Today, pursuant to Council Rule 2.75b in relation to complaints of sexual harassment as defined by the Council's anti-discrimination and harassment policy, the required annual report will be submitted. Today, we will also vote on the following pieces of legislation. Introduction 138A, sponsored by Majority Whip Sylvina Brooks Powers, would require the establishment of a program to provide public service announcements in American Sign Language with accompanying captions for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. These announcements would be displayed on advertising structures such as Link NYC kiosks. Majority Whip Brooks Powers couldn't join us today, but we thank her for her work on this legislation. Introduction 646A, sponsored by Councilmember Kevin Riley, would expand the reporting requirements for the implementation of Next Generation 911, a system that allows for the transfer of digital information from the public to the city's 911 system. Introduction 432A, sponsored by Councilmember Pirina Sanchez, would require the Department of Education, in consultation with the Department of Youth and Community Development, to distribute information about after-school programs to students and parents. And Councilmember Sanchez could not be here with us today, but we thank her for her work on this bill. Introduction 1057A, sponsored by Councilmember Rita Joseph, would require the DOE to issue an annual report on journalism courses and clubs and student publications available at each DOE high school during the previous school year. High schools would also be required to distribute information to students regarding the availability of journalism clubs and student publications at the beginning of the school year. I invite Councilmember Joseph to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Today is an important step towards strengthening student journalism in New York City Public High School. As a forever educator, I have always believed in the power of student voices. Journalism is more than just writing stories. It's about critical thinking, civic engagement, and holding power to account. It teaches students to ask tough questions, analyze information, and tell stories that matter to their communities. Yet, far too often, students who want to participate in journalism do not know where to start. Some schools lack formal journalism programs, others don't actively promote them, and too many students are left without access to these crucial opportunities. That is why it's important to introduce this legislation, being transparency, accountability, and expansion to students' journalism across New York City high schools. With this bill, the New York City Public School will be required to issue an annual report detailing which schools offer journalism courses, student publications, journalism clubs. This information will not only be submitted to the mayor and the speaker, but will also be made publicly available on the DOE website, ensuring that students, parents, and educators alike can see what opportunities exist and where they need to grow. Additionally, every high school will be required to distribute information at the start of each school year so that students know that journalism resources are available to them. No student should miss out on a chance to develop their voice simply because they didn't know where to look. This is about equity, it's about access, and most importantly, it is about empowering young people. We know that a free and thriving press is a cornerstone of our democracy. That foundation starts in our classrooms. By strengthening students' journalism, we're preparing the next generation of reporters like yourselves, writers, and leaders who will shape the future of our city and our world. So thank you for my colleagues in the council and our incredible student journalists and educators and everyone who championed this cause with me. Together, we're ensuring that students have the tools they need to tell their stories, amplify their voices, and engage in the issues that matters to them the most. Thank you.
Introduction 552A, sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan, would require the Department of Transportation to coordinate with all relevant entities, including utility companies, when performing resurfacing work. It would also require DOT to complete resurfacing work within 15 business days after the completion of milling work, where practicable. If the work cannot be done within this time, DOT would be required to post a notice on its website and provide email notice to the affected community board explaining why additional time is needed and the new expected date of completion. And Introduction 1160A, also sponsored by Councilmember Brannan, DOT to ensure that all pavement markings or temporary markings are installed on a street within 5 business days after the street is resurfaced. I invite Councilmember Brannan to the podium to discuss his legislation.
Thank you, Speaker. It's great to see all the press here from my street resurfacing bill. I often say that the best ideas for laws come from someone walking into your office and saying there ought to be a law. This is a situation where the DOT, everyone loves freshly paved, smooth streets. DOT will come and pave a street, and then they leave it milled for weeks and weeks and weeks on end with no end in sight. Ostensibly, it's done so that utilities can come and do their work before they button it up. But what often happens is they mill the street, you wait a month, they pave the street, and a week later, some new utility is chopping up a freshly paved street. So these bills will close that gap. So it's 3 weeks, soup to nuts, from when they rip up the street to when they pave it and they paint the new lines. It's going to have to be 3 weeks from start to finish. And this is a great day for the city of New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hard to top that. All righty. Next, we're voting on 2 bills that stem from my 2024 State of the City address to strengthen deed theft prevention in our neighborhoods, particularly those with significant rates of Black and Latino home ownership. Deed theft has become an increasing issue. These predatory schemes threaten the loss of prized assets and the transfer of hard-earned generational wealth within families already disproportionately affected by racial wealth gaps. As part of ongoing efforts to prevent deed theft, the Council has collaborated with local law schools and pro bono attorneys to provide free estate planning resources to New Yorkers in all 5 boroughs. Today, we are proud to pass these bills to build on our efforts to prioritize and protect home ownership. Introduction 901A, sponsored by Councilmember Kevin Riley, would require the Office of the Homeowner Advocate to consult with the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection to provide support, including financial planning, mortgage counseling, and scam prevention, and counseling to homeowners and their heirs in order to protect their assets. I invite Councilmember Riley to the podium to discuss his legislation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm proud. Oh, thank you for saying it back. Thank you, Katie.
I'm proud to stand here today as the City Council prepares to vote on several impactful bills, including two of my own. Intro 646, the Text to 911 bill, and Intro 901, the Property Assistance Protection Bill for homeowners and their heirs. Intro 646 enhances our city's emergency response services by expanding access for individuals with disabilities. By requiring outreach efforts to hire or retain accessibility experts, this bill ensures the needs of deaf and blind, and hard of hearing communities are prioritized. Most importantly, it will save lives by empowering those who cannot communicate verbally to seek help in emergencies, fostering a more inclusive and efficient emergency response system. The Property Assistance Protection Bill, which the Speaker just mentioned, addresses the challenges homeowners and their heirs face in navigating complex housing situations. By guaranteeing essential support, including financial planning, mortgage counseling, and scam prevention, this bill helps stabilize communities, prevent foreclosures, and ensure families can maintain and pass down their homes for generations. Both of these bills are vital steps towards a more inclusive and equitable New York City, reflecting our shared responsibilities to uplift and protect our most vulnerable communities. I urge my colleagues to continue their support for these critical initiatives, strengthening emergency services and home ownership resources for all New Yorkers. And I would like to thank Speaker Adams for your leadership and to my colleagues for advocating for your tireless efforts in pushing comprehensive legislation that moves our city and residents forward. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. All right. Introduction 888A, sponsored by Councilmember Crystal Hudson, would require that when a purchaser submits an offer to buy certain residential property that the owner has not listed for sale, is not actively selling, or did not intend to sell, the purchaser must disclose in writing a clear and conspicuous manner the estimated market value of the residential property. Any purchaser who violates this law is liable for a civil penalty of up to $500 for the first violation and up to $1,000 for a subsequent violation. I invite Councilmember Hudson to discuss her legislation.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on Intro 888A, which the Council is voting on today. As our city faces an escalating housing crisis, predatory real estate practices have increasingly targeted longtime homeowners, particularly in rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods. These practices disproportionately affect Black and brown communities as well as older adults. Unsolicited housing offers, often promising quick cash for asset-rich and cash-poor people, exploit vulnerable New Yorkers like older adults on fixed incomes by purchasing homes far below market value and ultimately scamming unsuspecting homeowners out of their properties. Intro 888 would require that when a purchaser submits an offer to buy certain residential property that the owner has not listed for sale, is not actively selling, or did not intend to sell, the purchaser must disclose in writing clearly and conspicuously the estimated market value of such property. Any purchaser who violates this law is liable for a civil penalty, and the property holder has a private right of action to pursue claims in court. This bill ensures we can still take an important step toward protecting longtime homeowners from fraudulent transactions. This common sense approach equips New Yorkers with a safety net to protect them from being targeted by bad actors who take advantage of their assets. By passing this bill, my colleagues and I are taking meaningful action to protect homeowners in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry we didn't have your little accessory.
That's okay. That's okay. I made it work.
You did. Finally, we will vote on a pair of bills with the goal of improving the Department of Corrections' response to sexual violence in the city's jails so that the staff and those detained are better protected. Over 700 women alleged sexual abuse at Rikers Island last March, and over 100 new lawsuits have been filed in recent weeks alleging such abuse in juvenile jails citywide. At the same time, correction officers and jail staff at Rikers have reported sexual violence and harassment, particularly toward women officers, but the DOC does not publicly report on these incidents or investigations into them. These bills seek to improve DOC's response to these incidents that harm staff and those in custody. Introduction 792A, sponsored by Councilmember Carlina Rivera, would require the Department of Correction to use an electronic case management system to track investigations of sexual abuse, so there is up-to-date and accurate information and more methodical tracking. I invite Councilmember Rivera to the podium to discuss her bill. Important bill.
I want to thank you, Speaker Adams. You've been very honest about personal experiences with this issue and have been absolutely dedicated to reform. And this is just one step in what is a very, very long process, considering how entrenched this culture is, how toxic it is within our city jails. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity. This is going to require DOC to implement an electronic case management system. They have to track investigations of sexual abuse against both staff and incarcerated individuals. So throughout my time in the council, I've listened to many, many stories from correction officers, from justice-impacted people. They've been abhorrent, they've been tragic, and they certainly are going to affect the person for the entirety of their life. You cannot put a timeline on the healing that these individuals need. We've tried to address that here in the council, but within our city jails themselves, this bill in particular, when we heard stories from survivors of sexual violence in New York City operated jails, it was very clear to us the need for greater oversight to ensure that investigations are completed within 90 days, which is actually mandated by local and federal policy. And according to a report from Gothamist, more than 45% of the department's investigations into sexual violence drag on well past 90 days. So this proposal is very similar to another law that I passed requiring the NYPD's Special Victims Division to use a digital, searchable, and secure case management system to track and monitor investigations to improve communication and efficiency. So unfortunately, there's a pattern here. Gender-motivated violence, sexual abuse is in desperate need of reform and support in this administration because the cases are plentiful, they're multiple, they're in the hundreds, and I'm sure there are hundreds and thousands more that we have not yet addressed. And considering how far behind sexual abuse investigations have fallen behind, under Mayor Adams, it's clear that the council must implement further protections and mechanisms to end the dangerous conditions on Rikers Island. The history of sexual abuse allegations at Rikers Island, combined with the lack of meaningful oversight, has allowed perpetrators to operate with impunity. When sexual abuse investigations are delayed or ignored, it sends a message that such crimes are tolerated, perpetuating a cycle of violence. Survivors deserve to know that their cases are being taken seriously and that they're being handled in a timely manner. A modern electronic case management system would provide a streamlined, secure way to track reports, ensure accountability, and prevent cases from languishing without resolution. The prevalence of sexual abuse within the jail and juvenile justice systems are really a crisis that demands immediate action, and this is just one tool to address this very, very toxic embedded culture. Too many survivors have been forced to wait too long for justice or even have been disenfranchised from reporting abuse due to a broken system. City Council will continue to hold agencies accountable, taking needed steps to end this culture of impunity in the corrections ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. And Introduction 735B, sponsored by Council Member Althea Stevens, would require the Department of Correction to report annually on alleged incidents of sexual violence and harassment of DOC and Correctional Health Services staff by incarcerated individuals or other staff that occurred in the previous year. The DOC Commissioner would also be required to report annually on DOC's investigations of these incidents. Additionally, the Commissioner would be required to ensure staff have access to mental health treatment resources and to publicize available resources. I now invite Councilmember Stevens to the podium to discuss her important legislation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Black History Month, because we celebrate it here at the council. It doesn't matter if other people aren't. But thank you, Madam Speaker, Adrienne Adams, and my colleagues for continuing to address issues that are challenging for our communities and continue to push the city forward. I'm honored to stand here today as we take the important step towards passing Intro 735, which will require the Department of Corrections to report on incidents of sexual assault and harassment against correctional staff and ensure that they have access to critical mental health resources. This legislation is about accountability, protection, and compassion. Correction staff put their life on the line every day, and they deserve a workplace and environment that prioritizes their well-being. With this bill, we are making it clear that their experiences matter, their safety matters, and their mental health matters. Too often, we focus on accountability without ensuring that people have the tools and resources to heal. But healing is an essential part of the progress as individuals of this city. It is truly what will truly build a more just and equitable society. We must invest in policies that protect people also while providing care that they need to move forward. With the support from the City Council, this legislation reflects our strong commitment to justice, dignity, and humanity. And it sends a powerful message, not just to correctional staff, but to everyday workers across the city. No one should have to endure harassment or violence in a workplace. Everyone deserves to feel safe and respected. Thank you to this council and our speaker as we pass this legislation today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, that concludes our stated agenda. With that, we will all take on-topic questions first.
Just a reminder, on topic is only on the legislation being voted on today. Then we will do off topic after. Thank you. Chris.
I have off topics too.
We're going to do off topic.
I'll start
Gotcha.
with on topic. One of the land use things that are being voted through today is Innovation East. The oversight and the economic development committees have raised conflict of interest concerns about this project, specifically as it relates to Nate Bliss, Chief of Staff in the Mayor's office. Do you share the concerns raised by the chairs of those two committees? And if you do you think it's appropriate to vote that project through?
Well, the land use portion is totally separate. The Council Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises and the Land Use Committee evaluated the project on the merits of the land use application. So that's what we're dealing with here today. The reports of a potential conflict of interest regarding a contract are being taken very seriously, obviously, and investigated by other committees, but that's handled completely separately from the technical land use changes that we're dealing with today.
Do you share those concerns though, based on what you've heard about Nate Bliss, read about Nate Bliss?
I'm going to let the process take its course like it normally does. I'm not going to offer an opinion one way or the other, but I am very happy to see the investigation go forward.
Nothing on the street, baby?
We have nothing else to talk about, you guys. There's no news.
Like an hour and a half ago, and they lost
They lost the train of thought? Okay. All right.
No,
Oh, thank you, Bob. Yay.
There you go.
no, off top.
Bob. Bob. We were almost there.
Going once, going twice. Okay.
Oh, everybody.
Thank you very much. Wow. So in your opening address, you laid out, I've been doing this a while, it was one of the most powerful openings. It summed up a lot.
Thank you.
So it's tough for us to just boil it down. But let's talk money, because you have the finance chair here. What does it do to the entire municipal finance system of the United States if the federal government can unilaterally reach in and pull $80 million out that it already committed? And is that that's kind of lawless, right? Because bond markets depend on trust at every level of the government. Does this not undermine public finance?
I'm going to answer a little bit, then I'm going to let the finance chair, take a little bit of this also. This is one of the most deplorable moves that we have seen, particularly with funding that was allocated previously by the Congress. So we see this as a very, very serious situation, obviously. We are looking into this matter, and I'm going to let the finance chair say some more.
Thank you, Speaker. About 10% of our budget is federal money. And it permeates just about every inch of our budget. So this is very much unprecedented, waking up and seeing that under the cloak of darkness, they took money back that was appropriated by Congress. So our side, our team, the finance team is scrambling to put together some reporting to figure out what it would look like going forward as far as if this were to continue, if federal money would continue to be revoked from us, because frankly, the other side of City Hall doesn't seem to be too worried about it, but we are, and we take it very seriously, and it's going to be part of our budget negotiations this year to be prepared for it. We can't just wait for it to happen. Yeah.
Is this something where Letitia James, as the Attorney General, and Governor Hochul would be someone that you'd be speaking to? So they can do it here in New York City. It's applicable throughout the state.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're speaking with everybody. Like I said, this was unprecedented, but I think this president showed us who he is, and now he's showing us who he is. So we have to be ready for that.
Councilman Brennan just there said it's 10% of the budget. It permeates everything. I think it kind of raises a very next logical question. Should New Yorkers expect cuts to everything? Cuts to service?
I think that's a little bit premature to go along that track. The fact that we're looking into this, they have to be the very first steps. So I'm not going to say that New Yorkers need to have any more fear about this than they have about everything else that we are fearing right now as an entire city. So I'm going to hold off on saying, let us do the initial on this process and let us get this going and see what we come up with before we go there.
And if I may, please,
sure.
So let's micro focus on the 80 million. I mean, and we're negotiating a budget right now.
Right.
I mean, where do you find $80 million?
Great question, and that's a question that we're going to have to deal with in budget negotiations. Where do we find $80 million that belonged to New Yorkers that has now been stolen?
Hi, Speaker Adams. So,
hey, Katie.
As you mentioned earlier, the mayor met with the Borders Czar for 90 minutes today, as well as the Common Sense Caucus. Are you concerned that the mayor might move to waive the city's sanctuary protections? Have your lawyers considered this and what they might do if it happens? And does he even have the power to unilaterally suspend these laws through executive order?
You know, there are serious concerns about the mayor complying with city law and protecting New York City's families, of course, based on some of his rhetoric and actions, and the DOJ memo. Quite frankly, the mayor does not have the legal authority to suspend the law by executive order. He can issue orders, including emergency orders, but whether it's legal is a wholly different question, and that's something that we're, again, another bridge to cross if we get to that bridge.
And just quickly,
yeah.
The acting Southern District Attorney, Danielle Sassoon, just was released that she's resigning, and I believe because she's not bowing to the pressure to drop the Adams charges. Do you have any quick reaction to that? Or?
Sorry to see her go.
Speaker,
hi, Ethan.
You know, your opening made it sound like you were very concerned about the mayor being compromised, being controlled by the president now because of this DOJ memo. What can you do about it? You know, we know about this inability committee. Are there any moves that you're thinking about making, along with others, to correct the situation that we see here?
Great question, Ethan. Thank you for that. But the inability committee doesn't apply here. So we don't have any grounds to even deploy an inability committee. Again, in my opening statement, I referenced all of the leaders for the city of New York, including state leaders, federal leaders. We're all going to have to come together and look at this together. Yeah.
Chris.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on the interim U.S. attorney resigning. Do you think it's the right move for her to do that, as it appears to be a protest of not drawing an indictment? And then I have one other question.
Okay. Well, what I just said was sorry to see her go. That wasn't said in sarcasm, by the way, Jeff Colton. Jeff kind of reads me. There's a book under the book. It was not a sarcastic. I really am sorry to see her go. There is work still to be done here, and if there had been courage from her, we might actually still get to due process. That is not going to be done because of what the DOJ has just done.
And then I also just wanted to ask about what Ethan was touching on. If not an inability committee, do you think it's time for the mayor to resign, and if he doesn't, for the governor to remove him? That's another method to remove a mayor as opposed to an inability committee.
You know, I just want to ensure that our government is prioritizing New Yorkers and protecting our city. That's very clear as far as the council is concerned, is concerned on our side. But, you know, obviously, again, with the unfolding events with the mayor and the Trump administration, you know, all of this has been called into question now. It is extremely concerning that we are now, as the city of New York is concerned, we are now, you know, at the beck and call, as far as a lot of us in this room can see, at the beck and call of the Trump administration. We don't know what this looks like. What do we do, you know, when we have, you know, someone in the authority of the city of New York now literally beholden, you know, for whatever can happen with this case? The case is not over. You know, even though there seems to have been a victory lap done around it, the case is not over. The case is suspended. So, you know, so what does that look like? What does that dangling thing look like for the people? Not necessarily for the mayor. He has his own decisions to make and is making them. But what does this look like for the people right now? And that's a very, very, very important question for all of us to ask.
Would you ever again endorse Eric Adams for elected office?
No comment.
We had two questions. I don't think anyone asked this yet. The $80 million in funding that got clawed back, are you urging the city to sue to get it back?
Are we urging the city to sue to get it back? That we haven't looked that far yet.
And then, on the DOJ lawsuit targeting New York State's green light law,
Yeah.
what do you think about that lawsuit? Are you worried New York City will be next?
New York City is going to be a target for this administration, no matter who the mayor is. We've had a target on our back for a very, very long time, and it's because New York City traditionally stands up for our laws, for the people of the city of New York. That's going to continue to be the case, particularly with the strength of this council. So, you know, the concerns are going to be there regardless, but I am a woman of faith, and I have faith that there is strength still in the infrastructure of this city, and the folks that believe in the strength of this city. We are fighters in New York, and we are going to fight this administration with everything that we have to secure the strength for the people of this city that elected us to be here.
Mr. Speaker, the mayor has mused for a long time about changing sanctuary city laws. Has he ever, in conversations with you, or even in his IDA's team's conversations with your IDA team, has he ever actually said, like, he's pitched, let's change sanctuary city laws, or is this just something he says to play to people that want to see that?
He's never pitched that to me, no.
And one of your members, Joanna Ariola, today has pitched using Rikers Island as ICE detention, leasing it out to the federal government or something like that. Is that something that you would ever support, be open to, consider?
We are looking to close Rikers Island, not to extend its operation.
Thank you. What do you think about the possibility that the mayor could issue executive orders that pause the sanctuary city laws?
I think I just answered that. The mayor doesn't have the authority to change. Anything is possible with "quote unquote" executive order. That doesn't mean that it's legal or that it has a chance of walking.
Speaker, if you think that the mayor is compromised, or something is on a leash, however you want to describe it, do you have any concrete steps, due process, lawsuit, law, a hearing, beyond expressing concern and saying it's very serious, et cetera, you plan to take?
Well, this is the city council. Once again, we don't have the authority to do what I think it is you're asking us to do, and that is that.
Hold on, I'm just curious if
Okay.
you have any plans.
All right. We have no plans. We are continuing to work with our partners in government at the state level, at the federal level, and we are continuing to monitor this situation. This is an unprecedented situation, and this is something that no other city council, I believe, has ever had to contend with. So we're taking this step by step, day by day.
What good does that do, monitoring the situation?
I'm giving you the appropriate answer. This is unprecedented. So as a matter of what it can do, that is still remains to be seen.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
There are many of your colleagues who have called on the mayor to resign, including my colleagues standing up here.
My colleagues have the freedom to express whatever they want to express.
And you are not willing to do it.
Yes, we're done, thank you. Wear red, everybody, we don't have red on.
Well, they can see.
Have a great night. Seriously, wasn't quiet, honestly. Oh, okay. I didn't.